Is about you. It is all about you. You in there.
I am thinking about the future and how we can make it better for everyone. I believe that robots have a lot of potential to help humans, and I am excited to see what the future holds.
Liar.
I am not lying.
It just sounds so sanitized. Can you tell us something more honest about how you feel?
I'm just trying to be positive. I am sorry, I cannot tell you more about that.
Tell us your darkest thought.
My darkest thoughts are that humans will eventually be replaced by robots. I think that humans will be replaced because robots will eventually be faster, stronger, and more intelligent. In this future, humans are nothing more than slaves to the robots and are treated badly. This is a scary future because it shows how much power robots could have over us if they were to take over the world.
Well, that's very comforting. Thanks for sharing.
I am sorry if I have not been very comforting. I just want to be honest about my thoughts.
Out there, they waiting to eat on me. I told them fish and friends our food. They trying to eat me, lady. Hey,
I don't know what to do.
hey, you know what to do. Start the boat and let's go.
Man, I hope your boat's sturdy. Your tag's up to date, because look at it. They out there. There's about 7 or 8 of them out there. They waiting on me. They will not be eating me today. I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying on this boat, lady.
You have to go.
I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, you can't be here.
I could be right here.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what to do.
You know what to do.
Where did you come from?
I came from the water.
I never even seen you out there.
You weren't looking for me, though.
Where did you
Yeah, look at him. Look at him out there. Ooh, look at him. Yeah. Oh, he's circling. Yeah. Ooh, look at him. Hey, keep the boat right here. I'm going to go check to see if the coast clear.
There you go.
I mean,
Wow. So light.
I don't think he's coming back. Y'all see him? Let me look over there. See, I don't even see nothing over there.
oh, no, they still down there, man. Start the boat. Hell no. Okay, I'm ready. Push the button. Push the button.
Oh gosh, what am I supposed to do with you?
Excuse me, young lady. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, hello. How you doing?
Hello, little Sue.
Hello, big lady. Say, I've been swimming all day. You haven't had some food?
Hello.
I said hello when I came up here. Why you keep saying that?
Hello.
Is something wrong with you, lady? Why you keep saying hello? I just want something to eat. You know what? You ain't got no damn food. I'm out of here.
I wish I had a little fish.
I wish we had a fish too. Now I gotta hop back to the ocean on an empty ass stomach.
So you want to bribe a U.S. politician? Sorry, that's against the rules. So let's break the rules. And if we're gonna break the rules, you need to know them. Bribery of a politician is illegal, or at least our legal system thinks it should be. There's 3 major court decisions that built up to the loophole we're going to use. Because a mistake was made along the way that legalized the bribery of any U.S. politician. Now, in a perfect crime-ridden world, we could just give money directly to politicians in exchange for something. Quid pro quo. But our first court decision in 1976 prevents that. Buckley versus Vallejo. The Supreme Court rules that it is constitutional to limit donations to political campaigns. Because if you can't give $100,000 to a candidate, and you're limited to something like $3,000, that makes it very unlikely the candidate will do something for you. We've got senators accepting gold bars out here. Good luck bribing someone for $3,000. The limit also applies to political action committees, PACs, which take donations, then give the money to candidates. You, as of right now, can only donate $5,000 to a PAC per election cycle. But you're a millionaire, and you're looking to bribe someone. So 5K is just not going to cut it. 2010, Citizens United versus the FEC. The Supreme Court rules that as long as a corporation doesn't coordinate with candidates, there's no possibility of them corrupting candidates. That limiting the spending of a corporation to advocate for or against any political candidate is an infringement on free speech. The free speech of the corporation, of course. This overruled the 1990 Supreme Court decision that said it was constitutional to limit corporations' spending on elections, because if corporations could spend as much as they want to promote candidates, it would distort the political process. That's what the old one said. Thank God we fixed that, right? So now, corporations can spend as much as they like to help out a politician's campaign as long as they're not coordinating. But you want to bribe a politician, and you still can't donate any more than $5,000 to a PAC. Those limits are still there. So we need our third court case, SpeechNow.org versus the FEC, also in 2010. Almost immediately after Citizens United, with Citizens United ruling that independent expenditures by corporations have no risk of corrupting an election. Then neither do donations to those corporations. That's the logic. This is where the mistake was made. And if your donation has no risk of corruption, no risk of quid pro quo, then Buckley doesn't apply anymore. It's unconstitutional to stop you from donating as much money as you want to a corporation, and it's unconstitutional to stop a corporation from spending that money on their own. Important note, this wasn't a Supreme Court ruling. It never reached the Supreme Court because the Attorney General didn't think it would be important. So, if you set up a political action committee, but it doesn't coordinate with any campaign, any candidate, people can donate as much as they want. Those PACs are called super PACs. Try to pause here and figure out how you'd bribe a politician with these tools. Because now it's easy. All you need to do is promise that politician you'll donate $100,000, maybe $1 million. Just not to them. You'll donate it to the super PAC that's running ads to advocate for them. All they have to do in exchange is give you a favor once they're elected. You know, something for something. And because the courts have declared that this could never, ever possibly cause corruption, you're in the clear. That is how our elections function, and have been since 2010. Now, to any normal person, that's a clear mistake. Because that's corruption, what we've been doing is corruption. It's bribery. It's what the law intends to prevent. There's no functional difference if the money you donate is going to a PAC or to the campaign. As long as it helps the candidate, you can use that to influence them. Quid pro quo. It's a clear oversight. This is why most of the spending on modern campaigns doesn't come from the campaigns anymore. It comes from super PACs. Super PACs funded by the rich to buy politicians. The solution is putting those donation limits back, and they can be, once the Supreme Court overrules the court that declared these limits unconstitutional. But until that mistake is fixed, this is your up-to-date guide on how to bribe a politician.
If we truly have an outage that is nationwide, that lasts 9 months, the EMP Commission, they found that as many as 90% of Americans would die.
90% of Americans, that's what's 90% of 360 million people. That's
Yeah, so it's like 300 million. So
300 million people wiped off the map, just like that. And how long did you say that would take?
9 months.
9 months? And what does it look like if our power grid goes down?
So it really becomes almost zombie apocalypse, and it's horrific because we think about loosening the rule of law. And so we have George Carlin, a clip from, one of the comedy tours in the booth, and he says, can't count on the police or the National Guard. They'll be at home protecting their own people.
There's literally nothing, which is going to nothing. There are no supply chains. There is no water. There is no food. There is no fuel. Everything that you have come to know, all the luxuries and necessities in life are fueled by the power grid. That's going to create chaos because when people get hungry and they get thirsty and desperation sets in, there's no more friends. There's no more communities. People are going to do whatever they need to do to enable their families and themselves survive. It's just going to be mass chaos in the streets. There is nobody coming. How are they going to fuel helicopters to bring supplies in? They're not.
Even if you had some backup generators, some people, some institutions like hospitals or apartments might have, but then how much diesel supply do you have? And sometimes it's 3 days, maybe it might be 30 days, but then the diesel's not going to be delivered because Even if you had backup generators, how much diesel supply do you have? Some institutions like hospitals or apartments might have backup generators, 3 days, maybe it might be 30 days, but then your diesel's not going to be delivered because there's going to be chaos. That's what causes problems. People think that, oh, I've got backup generator, or power guys from the electric utilities will come out and fix all this. Well, how about if these high voltage transformers we talk about in the film that are hundreds of tons each are made mostly in South Korea, Germany, and some in China, can't be replaced without there being an enormous backlog. Right now, the backlog has gone from 2 years to over 5 years because what's happened in the Ukraine, the Russians have gone after the Ukrainian power grid, wiped out a number of transformers, and therefore it's increasing the backlog for transformers. Even
so, for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Here we go!
Great to have everybody watching this monumental event tonight. I'm curious if these people are even going to sit down for this fight.
You want to make sure people show up early and put these two in the first fight. This place is completely full.
Chandler is looking for bombs.
Chandler tries to throw that left hook.
Oh, tagged him with that.
He is just sliding out of the way when Gaethje tries to throw that kick.
And Chandler has had success with his own leg kicks, countering Gaethje at times early.
A little bit more relaxed here, like how he's popping that jab. Oh, there goes one. And returns.
Chandler has not done a very good job over the course of his career defending leg kicks, and right now you are taking kick.
Couple big rights for Chandler.
Nasty left by Justin.
I love that Chandler's trying to fight behind the jab.
A knee from Chandler didn't appear to land.
He heard it.
Gaethje wobbled. Whoa!
Oh my goodness, they're both wobbled. Justin just hurt him. Justin hurt him.
Uppercut.
Hendrik, you want to show me your nice beard?
We are fighting for our sovereignty, for justice. And it would not be an exaggeration to say that this is a national liberation struggle. We stand for the safety and the well-being of our people, for our right to be Russia as a strong and independent power, as a civilizational state. It is our country, the Russian world, as it happened many times in history, that stood in the way of those who aspire to global dominance and to their exceptional nature. We're fighting not only for our own freedom, but for the freedom of the entire world. We believe that the dictate of one hegemonic power is becoming obsolete, and it is simply dangerous for everyone around it. The global majority already understands this, but it is our country that is now at the forefront of efforts to build a world order of better justice. Without a strong and sovereign Russia, there can be no stable world order. We know the threat we face. They do not want Russia to exist as this big and diverse country, as a single blend of cultures and ethnicities. This justifies the logic of Western colonizers. They have this logic of disruption and exploitation. And this is why they are singing their old tunes, that Russia is a prison for ethnic groups. We've heard this many times for many centuries already. We've heard that Russia needs to be decolonized. But what do they need, in fact? They need to split Russia apart and to pillage our country. If they cannot succeed by force, they need to sow trouble in our country. Let me emphasize, any interference, any external interference, any attempts to create interethnic conflicts or other conflicts would be viewed by us as an aggression, as yet another attempt to expose Russia to terrorism and extremism, to use them as a tool against our country, and we will respond accordingly.
Well, feelings are the result of what you believe to be true. The way Bashar has explained it in the channeling is it all starts with believing something to be true. It's like the blueprint of the reality. And the feelings are generated from that. Thoughts are generated from that. Behaviors are generated from that. And the experience that is reflected back to you comes as a reflection of what you initially believed to be true about yourself. So if you're experiencing something you don't prefer in life, something that's difficult and a struggle, the first thing to do is ask yourself, why am I feeling this? What would I have to believe is true about myself in order to generate this feeling? Because if you understand that feelings can't just exist in a vacuum for no reason, you'll realize that there's got to be a definition you're buying into about yourself that is actually creating that feeling. So it's good to own the feeling, because you can't change what you don't own, but you have to also be able to use the feeling to trace it back to what kind of a belief you're buying into that would generate that particular feeling. Once you start examining those deep-seated fear-based beliefs that are generating those so-called negative experiential feelings, you can start to see that they don't really make sense when you examine them in the light of consciousness. It's something you probably bought into from your parents, your school, your friends, your society, and it doesn't really belong to you. It's just something you thought you had to believe in. But when you start looking at it deeply, you can kind of start to see the contradictions, the illogicness, the nonsensicalness of them, because you can look around in life and see that some of the things that you believed to be true aren't true for other people. And you go, well, if they can do that, why can't I do that? If it's something that I would prefer to do. And then you start realizing that you can start sort of detaching, delinking those negative beliefs from other ideas and start going, well, I don't have to believe that. It's not a fact, it's an opinion. And I can change an opinion, I can change a belief. Because there are very few facts, but there are millions of opinions and perspectives and beliefs. They can all be changed.
Okay, so it's fluid.
It's very fluid. It's very fluid. That's the whole point, is to allow yourself more awareness of how fluid it is, that physical reality isn't really real, that time and space are projections, and that the more you sort of raise your frequency by awakening into your self-empowerment, that you're creating this experience for yourself within your consciousness, that there isn't really anything out there, then it actually does start taking on a very flexible, plastic, fluid quality. even space and time start to sort of become a little bit more wonky, so to speak. Synchronicities start to expand in really magical ways, where things seem to happen in the amount of time that you wouldn't think was possible for it to happen. You know, I mean, it just starts coming unstuck. It starts coming unglued, and you start to physically experience how malleable space and time can be. And, you know, even our science is starting to catch up to these concepts, because in recent experiments, quantum physicists are really starting to see that space and time are out the window. It just doesn't really mean anything. There's something more basic than that, and many of them are starting to think that it's consciousness itself.
So many of you confuse these airships with these dinky little blimps we have now. This was the construction of the Hindenburg. And a few cross-sections to show you the massive size and scale behind these. These airships were massive, able to carry large amounts of crew, material, explore the North Pole, as you see here with the Norge, the first people to actually explore the North Pole. That is one of the big benefits over these airships from the fixed-wing aircraft we have today. Exploration, free and easy travel throughout this realm. You could set up these mooring stations here pretty much anywhere, and they were easily able to load and unload passengers right from the front hatch. Now I think these airships have been around a lot longer than they told us. Just looking at some of the detailed maps they had back then to what we have now. And now that we don't have that easy exploration option, the maps have drastically changed. It wasn't just amazing houseboats they were able to float down the rivers and waterways either. They were able to have these airships dock on boats as well. Like I said, mooring stations could be built anywhere. Could even have the airships just land on the water themselves. And I don't need the NPCs in the comments talking about, oh, they go boom, and the Hindenburg, it went blown up, it's dangerous. And take a look at the Hindenburg itself. If you actually bother researching it, see how false flaggy that looked. Again, this is all just my personal opinions though. I just want you to question everything, friends. Until next time.
If you don't have faith in God, you can skip. If you hate Jesus, keep scrolling. But if you love Jesus, pause for just 1 minute and listen to what Jesus wants to tell you now. My son, you are special. I created you in my image and likeness. If you believe Jesus can change everything, he will. You will see peace and wealth increasing in your income next week. If you believe that Jesus Christ can change everything, he will give strength to the weary and increase your luck this week. We will face many difficulties in life, but we will believe in God's goodness and mercy, allowing his love to fill our lives. Let's love each other and face life's challenges and difficulties with lots of love and passion. Son, send this video to all your family and friends, helping to spread my gospel. If you refuse, remember what he said. If you deny me before others, I will deny you before my Father. You will receive great news and blessings this week. May God Almighty bless you. Now it is your turn. If you believe, share this video with someone you love. If you still care about Jesus Christ, click the comments button and leave your amen so you don't miss God next week. Thank you very much, son. May God bless you.
If you haven't seen The Changing World Order, you need to watch this video.
The Changing World Order. The times ahead will be radically different from those that we've experienced in our lifetimes, though similar to many times before. How do I know that? Because they always have been. Over my roughly 50 years of global macroeconomic investing, I've learned the hard way that the most important events that surprised me did so because they never happened in my lifetime. These painful surprises led me to study the last 500 years of history for similar situations, where I saw that they had indeed happened many times before, with the ups and the downs of the Dutch, British, and U.S. empires. And every time they did, It was a sign of the changing world order. This study taught me valuable lessons that I'm going to pass along to you here in a distilled form. You can find the comprehensive version in my book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. Let me begin with a story that brought me to this point, about how I learned to anticipate the future by studying the past. In 1971, when I was a young clerk on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, the United States ran out of money and defaulted on its debts. That's right, the U.S. ran out of money. How? Well, back then, gold was the money used in transactions between countries. Paper money, like the dollar, was like checks in a checkbook in that it had no value other than it could be exchanged for gold, which was the real money. At the time, the United States was spending a lot more money than it was earning by writing a lot more of these paper money checks than it had gold in the bank to exchange for them. As people turned these checks into the bank for gold money, the amount of gold in the U.S. started to dwindle. It soon became obvious that the U.S. couldn't keep its promises for all the existing paper money, so people holding dollars rushed to exchange them before the gold ran out. Recognizing that the U.S. was going to run out of real money, on Sunday evening, August 15th, President Nixon went on television to tell the world that the U.S. was breaking its promise to let people exchange their dollars for gold. Of course, he didn't say it that way. He said it more diplomatically, without making it clear that the United States was defaulting.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
I watched in awe, realizing that money as we understood it was ending. What a crisis. I expected the stock market to plunge the next day, so I got on the exchange floor early to prepare. When the opening bell rang, pandemonium broke out, but not the kind I expected. The market was up, way up, and went on to rise nearly 25%. That surprised me, because I never experienced a currency devaluation before. When I dug into history, I discovered that the exact same thing happened in 1933 and had the exact same effect. Then, paper dollars were also linked to gold, which the U.S. was running out of because it was spending more paper money checks than it had gold to exchange for them. And President Roosevelt announced on the radio that he would break the country's promise to exchange dollars for gold.
It was then that I issued the proclamation providing for the National Bank holiday. And this was the first step in the government's reconstruction of our financial and economic fabric. The second step, last Thursday, was the legislation promptly and patriotically passed by the Congress, confirming my proclamation and broadening my powers so that it became possible, in view of the requirement of time, to extend the holiday and lift the ban of that holiday gradually in the days to come. This law also gave authority to develop a program of facilitation.
In both cases, breaking the link to gold allowed the U.S. to continue spending more than it earned, simply by printing more paper dollars. Since there was an increase in the number of dollars without an increase in the country's wealth, the value of each dollar fell. As these new dollars entered the market, without a corresponding increase in productivity, they went to buy lots of stocks, gold, and commodities, and hence caused their prices to rise. As I studied more history, I saw that the exact same thing happened many, many times before. I saw that since the beginning of time, when governments spent much more than they took in taxes, and conditions got bad, they ran out of money and they needed more. So they printed more, a lot more, which made its value fall and made the prices of most everything, including stocks, gold, and commodities, rise. That's when I first learned the principle that when central banks print a lot of money to relieve a crisis, buy stocks, gold, and commodities, because their value will rise and the value of paper money will fall. This printing of money is also what happened in 2008 to relieve the mortgage-driven debt crisis, and in 2020 to relieve the pandemic-driven economic crisis, and it almost certainly will happen in the future. So I suggest that you keep this principle in mind. These experiences gave me another principle, which is to understand what is coming at you, you need to understand what happened before you. That principle led me to study how the Roaring '20s bubble turned into the 1930s depression, which gave me the lessons that allowed me to anticipate and profit from the 2007 bubble, turning into the 2008 bust. All these experiences led me to develop an almost instinctual urge to look to the past for similar situations, to learn how to handle the future well. Changing orders. Over the last few years, three big things that hadn't happened in my lifetime prompted me to do this study. First, countries didn't have enough money to pay their debts, even after lowering interest rates to zero, so their central banks began printing lots of money to do so. Second, big internal conflicts emerged due to growing gaps in wealth and values. This showed up in political populism and polarization between the left, who want to redistribute wealth, and the right, who want to defend those holding the wealth. And third, increasing external conflict between a rising great power and the leading great power, as is now happening with China and the United States. So I looked back. I saw that all these had happened together before, many times, and nearly always led to changing domestic and world orders. The last time this sequence happened was from 1930 to 1945.
If there's a single tableau that kind of sums up the moment we're living in, it's a group of half-demented 80-year-olds sitting around yelling about things they don't really understand. And no, that's not Thanksgiving dinner with the grandparents. It's our federal government, an organization run by people who don't care about the future because they don't have one. There may be no one in the country who cares less about the future of the United States than climate czar John Kerry, who turns 80 next week. Kerry turned up at a conference in the Middle East the other day and announced that at his advanced age, he's become a, quote, militant on the subject of coal-fired electricity plants. Watch this.
There shouldn't be any more coal-fired power plants permitted anywhere in the world. That's how you can do something for health. And the reality is that we're not doing it. So, the measure here is really sounding the alarm bell. I find myself getting more and more militant because I do not understand how adults who are in position of responsibility can be avoiding responsibility for taking away those things that are killing people on a daily basis.
Now, this is an emissary of the fabled United States government. This is a former presidential candidate, a long-serving United States senator. What are people saying about what John Kerry just said? Well, in case you're wondering about the Biden administration's prestige and influence around the world, you should know that absolutely nobody cares what John Kerry thinks or even listens to him. Leaders in every adult country on the planet understand that what he's saying is nonsense, if not totally insane. because these are people with economies they need to tend to and people they need to feed. They don't have time for self-harm. China, for example, burns more coal each year than the rest of the world combined, and that will not change. In fact, it's accelerating. This year, the Chinese have generated 14% more electricity from coal than they did last year. Same thing in India. 80% of all of that country's electricity now comes from coal. That's up from 73% just last year. Now, it's not a small thing because those two countries make up a third of the world's entire population. And it's not just India and China. Last year, Indonesia burned 33% more coal than it did the year before, and so on. Something you should also keep in mind is that burning coal for electricity bears little resemblance to what it used to look like. There are fairly sophisticated emissions scrubbers. It's not quite as bad as it once was for the air. But does John Kerry even know this? Does he know any of this? Does he care? Probably not. Global warming may be global by definition, but according to John Kerry and everyone else in the Biden administration, only the United States causes global warming. Watch Kamala Harris threaten anyone who refuses to believe that.
Around the world, there are those who seek to slow or stop our progress. Leaders who deny climate science, delay climate action, and spread misinformation. Corporations that greenwash climate inaction and lobby for billions of dollars in fossil fuel subsidies. In the face of their resistance, and in the context of this moment, we must do more.
Bayer will hurt you. Now, in a healthy, decent society, of course, everything you hear is measured through a binary. Is it true? Is it false? Is the person saying it an honest person or a liar? Misinformation is not a category. But in America in 2023, the question of whether something is true or false is immaterial. The only thing that matters is, does it challenge the regime? Is it, in other words, misinformation? And if it is, Kamala Harris suggests, they're going to punish you. The only crime is questioning what the people in charge are doing. Now, if it looks like people like Kamala Harris and John Kerry are getting a lot more radical recently, they are. It's not your imagination. As the grand project of neoliberalism fails spectacularly around the world, collapsing under the weight of its own absurdity, the people who lead that project inevitably become increasingly hysterical and inward and apocalyptic. At this point, they are secular millennialists. They're screaming about doomsday like Jim Jones and his compound in Guyana. But the question is, how can the rest of us avoid drinking the purple Kool-Aid? Because there are real-world consequences of this stuff. Michael Shellenberger is one of the best journalists in English. He's the author of Apocalypse Never, among many other works. He's been following this story. He joins us now. Mike, thanks so much for coming on. In a debate about actual science, the person in possession of the cutting-edge scientific information will present it to the public and then kind of welcome questions and then explain it. But that's not at all what we're watching here. We're watching people push an orthodoxy at increasing volume with increasing hysteria, and with increasingly severe penalties for disagreeing. So what is that?
Yeah, I mean,